Thank you, and thank you for joining the IAIC 2022 panel discussion. I'm really honored to be moderating this this session that is theme header, the impact of climate change on agriculture and resilient agriculture. You were all introduced by the secretary before the panel, but I'd like to just to give everyone a few words to introduce yourselves and your background and welcome into your panel. So starting from you, Julie, go ahead.
Thank you. I am Julie Howe. I'm a professor at Texas A&M University and Texas A&M AgriLife, and my research focus is soil chemistry and fertility, and most of my work goes into looking at sustainable agriculture systems, looking at the reactions and the processes that go in to making the soil healthy and more resilient.
Thank you. Then Dr. Keng-Tung Wu, please introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Keng-Tung Wu from National Zhongxin University, Taiwan. My research topic is using the agricultural or forest waste to convert it into the biomass energy. Thank you.
And Dr. Kobi Inbar, go ahead, please.
Hi everybody, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Kobi Inbar, and my background is in agriculture, and more specifically in biological control of plant diseases. But with the years, I've actually combined my knowledge and background in science and research with the industry and transforming research and technological innovations into startup companies, working with investors and startups and corporates. And now I'm heading the Technological Entrepreneurship program, MA program in Israeli College of Engineering in Jerusalem. I'm at the Department of Industrial Engineering and Management, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you everybody for joining. The topic of the panel, or the theme of the presentations given before the panel, was the impact of climate change on agriculture and resilient agriculture. And my question for you, all of you panelists, the opening that you could address each individually is that, based on your current ongoing research, what are the key topics you want to highlight as important ways to build resilience to agriculture? So could we start from Professor Julie Howe?
Sure. Well, I think that there's a lot of things that are important for resilient agriculture. We need to make sure that we get. I think there's it's a huge change, I think, in a lot of for a lot of agricultural systems, and one of the main things that I find in my work is the adoption process. Because a lot of the resilient agricultural practices are not necessarily economical in the first few years. It's very difficult for a farmer who's maybe in a, farming's kind of a gamble. You put all your eggs in one basket. You grow a crop, or you have a long time that you've invested to get to that bottom line where you sell. And so if it's not economical in the first few years, then it's not very attractive to adoption. So that is something that it's really not necessarily a science question, but how do we get adoption? How do we incentivize that adoption? How do we get government policies and or price structures and commodity? We get the industry in to pay for that. So I think adoption is one thing that is really important. And then the other thing I think is really important is to have regionally specific recommendations, because what works in one place does not necessarily work in another place. So I think it's very important to make sure that our research is providing those recommendations so that farmers know what works and what doesn't work in their particular environment.
Okay. Yeah, very, very good discussion on the topic, and I think that adoption is something that we can come back on this panel. It's a very interesting topic. So how about from your side, Dr. Keng-Tung Wu, about what are the important ways from your perspective to build resilient agriculture?
Yeah, thank you. I think that we need to build up the resilient agricultural system. Currently, I think there's new technology must be involved in this system. For example, the AI, AIoT, and some of the smart agricultural system. Because currently we must to fight back the impact of the climate change. For example, in Taiwan, currently we are faced with one thing. It's although in the past 3 years we didn't meet the typhoon, but the problem is that even typhoon did not go to Taiwan. For example, this week, the problem is that we still face a lot of the large or huge raining. So that damages us not like the typhoon, but probably the damage is more is very bad than typhoon. So how to prevent that and how to something like a rescue the agricultural system, or for example the crop. I think that some of the technology is very important, but the problem is like Julia said, that I think the public policy is very important because everything, even you have a good technology, you have a good measure, but if the policy cannot be support that, probably it's difficult to do that. I think it's agricultural. I don't know the other country, but the agricultural, the farmers in Taiwan is, I think it's a kind of the very weak compared to the other business or the industry system. So they still need to some assistance in the finance or other technology, because they cannot use the new technology. So maybe to build up a network and very quickly to induce some new technology. I think that is most important, especially the farmers. They don't know about the new technology, and even they don't want to use that. But some of the farmers always said that the traditional method is enough, but they don't know what the global change is very fast. It's not like the 20 years ago or 30 years ago. It needs a new method to fight back the climate change. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Keng-Tung Wu. How about you addressing this question, Dr. Kobi Inbar? Based on your current research, what would you highlight the key ways to build resilience to agriculture?
Yeah, thank you. I'll try to emphasize what I've tried to demonstrate already in my talk. That is that in order for us to successfully deal with all these enormous challenges that the climate change is posing to us, we must combine and join forces and capabilities between the government, the academia, the industry, which is the private sector, and as mentioned before, the farmers. And that's what we have tried to do with the Knowledge Center, working with companies, with the government, with the support of the government, and the academia, different institutions, and the regional research center, which are actually working closely with the farmers. I think that none of these players can or should deal alone with the multitude of tasks that and challenges that we are facing, but rather combined and coordinated action of all these can bring about the desired results. And I think we've just recently experienced the COVID-19 pandemic, which taught us that only a well-concerted global action and international collaboration can bring about real sustained solutions. So We are no longer, not that I think we have ever before, were isolated from one another, not as countries and not as nations. So when it comes to climate change, it's definitely true. So this is, I think, my point of view, at least.
Okay. Thank you. We have received questions from the audience that I could kind of refer in a way that in a world where we are kind of focused on very short-term goals. So how about in agriculture, that how we can bring back the biodiversity and soil health, and how do we, let's say, bring back the long-term view to agriculture? This is the question from the audience. I think it's related to pesticides and fertilizers overuses or something like that. So any responses to that question from the audience? I think we could address it here when talking about the resilience.
I can try to tackle that if you want.
Yeah, take a photo. Thank you.
So, I actually have a fairly optimistic view of the microorganisms and the plants in soil. I don't know, maybe it's erroneous, but I feel like if we start implementing these, practices where we include biodiversity as far as our planting and our management practices, I think the biodiversity and the soil health will return. I have seen projects where I've done long-term projects, and you can really see that when you start with a typical farming soil, and then you start adding these practices, you see a change. So it does take a few years, but you do see it come back. And I honestly feel like the bigger struggle is not the pesticides and the fertilizer, is the way we treat our soil as far as structurally, and allowing it to be bare and be impacted by raindrops and destroying the soil structure and traffic and things like that. I think those are the slower things to recover. I think the biodiversity of the organisms, they're actually pretty resilient. If you start seeding that with your biodiversity, I think it will come back quicker than maybe what you've done with erosion and soil loss and loss of structure. So to me, those are the bigger concerns for what we've been doing to our soils for the last many years. But I do agree it's something to consider and certainly to be striving for as we work with these resilient practices.
Thank you. Very, very good discussion on that topic. Please, Dr. Keng-Tung Wu, you can continue.
Yeah, I think that Ville, you have mentioned about the biochar. I think this is probably it's a good way to treating or to let the soil health become very, very important, because that we note a lot of the soil currently is very, very, very bad. So if we adapt some biochar, that can be improve the soil properties, especially the fertilizer. You don't need to use a lot of the kind of the pore of the biochar that make a kind of the storage for the water for facilities. So even that's a good resident area for the good part inside with the bacteria to in there. So for a long time studied, we think about the biochar. Probably it's a kind of the good method to let the soils become healthy. Especially we can use the agricultural waste. So this is also the circular economy, and also it's the we call the net carbon emission method as well. So that probably it's a good way to do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Second question I have prepared and thought of the team is that I think we could also address it in many ways, but how would you see what are the current biggest risks due to the climate change to your region's agriculture? I think it's very widely discussed topic, but would be really interesting to hear your practical and examples of what is happening in your region. Could we start now with Dr. Kobi from your side addressing?
Yes, sure, of course. Thank you. What I will try to do is actually share with you some of the work that has been done not only by me, but a group of experts here in Israel under the umbrella of the Ministry of Agriculture. And we are starting to map the challenges and start to articulate the policy from short, mid, and long term in Israel. And the climate change will affect in Israel, at least the way we see it. And I think it's not, as far as I could judge, it's not so unique to Israel. And maybe we have found some solutions for some aspects of it, but I think it's more common for all of us. So what we can see is change in the amount of rainfall and the rainfall regimes, also in Israel, of course, and the availability of benign water for irrigation. And of course, the increase in heat loads, even though we are living in a very hot country, and which the majority of the area is desert practically, still, and the heat loads are increasing with the time. And the temperature regimes are changing, of course, and starting to become abnormal in a way. And of course, it changes the composition of the nutritional values of agricultural crops. So it's not only the crops that are changing, but also the nutritional values. And with that said, in order for us to increase the resilience of the Israeli agriculture, as far as we could realize and analyze so far, we have to put full attention to soil fertility. People just as mentioned the biodiversity, and definitely we have to use less pesticides and less fertilizers and do it in a more clever and more smart way. Increase the variety of crops, and that's what we have tried to do also in the knowledge center. We tried to build a kind of a integrated research that dealt with the physiological and phenotypical aspects of the plants, and then the precision agriculture with the soil, plant, atmosphere continuum, and the continuous monitoring of it. And of course, a adjustment between the growing areas and the changes in the climate, because we have moved lots of the crops that were used to be grown in the north of Israel or in the center of Israel to the south, and many others are now in greenhouses. So all the system is changing. So at least from my perspective, and I believe my colleagues will agree that these are not so unique to Israel, even though that the water scarcity is not that of a problem in Israel, because we are dealing with this problem since the very commence of the state of Israel. So, but yet still.
Yeah. Thank you for the discussion and response. So how about you, Dr. Keng-Tung Wu? How do you see your area's biggest risk for agriculture due to the climate change?
I think currently in Taiwan, I think that we face the climate change is similar to the other countries, especially in the temperature. For example, now the winter is we got a high temperature, so the warm winter, and then some production. For example, the fruit, the longan or the lychee, the production is decreased, and also the drought is also the problem in the summertime, and we because in Taiwan the industry is very important. For example, the same the conductive, this kind of electronic industry, they need a lot of the water So they probably have some competition with the agricultural water. And then in the summertime, if we don't have a lot of the raining, and then the drought, the weather, all will be affecting the agricultural production. So that's probably also is very important to find more water resources and how to keep the water resources as well. Some of the policy I think also is very important, but the problem is always we are affected by some some election, and then the some of the parties they don't want to change the policy. For example, maybe the water bills, the electricity bill in Taiwan, it seems it's too low. So we still need to more active action to save the energy and also the water. Otherwise, the agricultural probably is will more to get bad during the climate change, because of the micro climate change. The phenomenon is always have been found during this few years. It goes very bad. Especially we don't have any typhoon during the last 3 years. Maybe the people is very happy about no typhoon, but this is another regular things. And all the typhoon going to the South Asia or Japan. The problem is we if in the summertime we don't have a typhoon or something, the water, the raining is too few. So that is the most important things. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
If I may comment, really, I just had the pleasure to host a group of students, Dr. Keng-Tung from Tung Hai University, coming to Israel to take my summer course in green sustainable entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
And what I could learn from them, I know what they, I hope I know what they have learned from me, but what I could learn from them, from the students coming from Taichung, is that I think you have more or less the same problems or the same challenges that we are having here in Israel. And maybe we have started to deal with those challenges a bit earlier for obvious reason maybe, but nevertheless, I think we are facing the same issues, and it's great to be able to exchange ideas and experience.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
It was a great experience for me.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then leading to you, Professor Julian, also just final comments and on your topic on the risks and of the climate change in your region. So
yeah, I totally agree with Dr. Wu and Dr. Inbar. The irregular, the changing weather patterns, and I'm in Texas, which is in the southern part of the United States. We just came off of the last 2 driest and hottest months we've ever had, and now we're in the wettest and somewhat coolest month we've ever had of August, and it's really quite surprising to have that weather change. It's been a very big challenge for our farmers. And so we're working on things as y'all mentioned. We're working on improving the resilience of our crops for drought. We're looking at improving organic matter to tide them over, to just hold more water in the soil so that they can be more resilient. We have some projects going on to just really get at the actual crop ability to withstand, looking at the microbiome, any type of reactions to try to give our farmers, sometimes even a day or 2 makes the difference, between catastrophic failure and the ability to eke out a yield. So that's what, yes, I think it's a global problem. So I agree with both of them entirely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Good reviews. I think that really captures the point that even though we are maybe geographically far apart, we have still the common problems to create the climate change. And I think that was the conclusion I'll be making from these statements. So there's a need for this kind of forums and collaboration for all the scientists to come together, share their knowledge, and work towards the. I think the key mentioned here was the adaptation of the new technologies, for example. So I think that is also that challenge that we have in the agriculture, that how do we actually deploy the solutions available and make them widely used, even though when there's in the short term economical incentives are not perhaps there yet. So that's a very good points and discussion. We have come to an end of our panel discussion time, and it's been a great pleasure hearing from you and going into details of the few selected topics. So thank you for joining. It's been a great pleasure of hosting and moderating you. So hopefully you enjoyed the conference, and thank you for all the listeners in the line. We were also addressing questions from you. So thank you for active participation to the discussion of the panelists. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. It was a great pleasure.